Santa stories, and I guess all of them sort of are, well, most of them will be around the time that I was working still, driving a bus, and I was a volunteer at the Royal Columbian Hospital in New Westminster. One of the things that I did was I was Santa at Christmas time, and choirs that came into the hospital and that were going to move through and around the hospital, Santa would guide them. And then we would have a couple of other volunteers as well. There were always things that you had to sort of be aware of. Sometimes we would end up in an area of the hospital where it wasn't good for us to be there. There was somebody dying, and family members in attendance, and a lot of tension and unhappiness, and having a choir fa la 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 laing up and down the hallway would be seen as offensive to some people, and understandably so. So we sort of had, because I was a volunteer, they knew me, and there was the other volunteers. So if we showed up at some location in the hospital that was just not receptive at that moment, we would get the high sign, and we would have briefed the choir beforehand. So if they saw us indicating, okay, quiet, and out, they were all ready to go. They would just stop, and we would just leave the area. And there was no follow-up to that. There were never any questions about why or anything like that. We had already briefed them. So it was kind of cool. It really worked well. Anyway, my first story earlier, my first story, I was talking about the Knox Baptist Church in New Westminster, that Christmas Eve was their time to shine. And so this is a Christmas Eve story, and it's a hard story because it doesn't have a good ending. But having said that, and powerful, it was incredible. They probably started about 7:30, so by 8 o'clock, 8:15, somewhere in there, we have worked our way up to pediatrics, children's area. And there's always a few children in the hospital on Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. I mean, if you're in hospital at Christmas time, it's because you have to be there. You're either very, very sick, badly injured. It's not anybody's idea of a holiday. And in the peds area, I cannot speak of other hospitals. At Royal Columbian, just off one of the nurses' stations, there's a room, and it's sort of like a sanctuary. There was TV in there and games and stuff. Big room, big bright room. And so if a doctor or a nurse, if somebody from the medical staff had to talk to a child, give an injection, take them for a test, anything, they never ever ever did it in that room. They would take the child back into their room and then do whatever it was that had to be done. But the sanctuary was just that. They did not do medical stuff there. So the child always felt safe. Anyway, that would be one of the very first rooms that we would check, because hey, if you get a kid in there watching TV, you can sing him a song. There was a mom sitting on a couch wrapping a gift, a large gift. And it didn't take her very long to figure out, what was going on here. Here's Santa Claus. And they probably heard us singing. And she asked if Santa could take this gift down to her son. Absolutely, of course. Let's go. Rah, rah, rah. This is what we're all about. Let's go, So she had to finish wrapping the gift. Oh, man. You know what? As I'm telling you this story, I get goosebumps, and I get inside of me, I am just, I'm emotional anyway. So anyway, we're waiting now for Mom just to finish wrapping the gift, and a nurse takes me aside. And her son, the boy that we're going to go down to see, is dying. And The room has a lot of family members there, and this is not it's not a happy place. The term is actively dying. This was imminent, and I don't know if it was an injury or an illness. I have not a clue, and it really wasn't, and it's not my business to know why. I just am told that this is what's going on. A lot of emotion. And some people will be happy to see a choir come in there, and some people will be offended by it. But we have been asked to do this by the boy's mom. And so I advised the choir that this is the situation. And if anybody didn't want to do this, I mean, that would be perfectly okay, but that's what you do. That's what they do. And so I said, look, here's what I want. I want a loud, boisterous, noisy song. I have no idea. I do not remember what that song was. But this was not the time for a solemn, let's kick ass. And they did. And we went down the hall, into this room. This boy I had the present with me. This boy is in his bed. I have not, in my mind, I can see the people, I don't know, 10, 15 people. I really don't remember, but something like that. And I could see the looks on their faces. I was the first one through the door. And the ones, they were all startled, right? I mean, the lady didn't go run in and said, oh, hey, guess what? There's a choir coming in. And so there was the look of horror and the look of happiness. Anyway, in we came, and they sang their hearts out. And I was able to give this boy a Christmas gift and to wish him Merry Christmas. I could tell you that I was at his side. I touched his hand. I don't know if I touched his face. I can't remember. But I remember doing this thing. And so it was like, oh. And so they finished their song, and we turned, and we're all crying, right? The staff is crying, the family's crying, the choir members are crying, Santa's crying. And we just turned, and out the door we go. And they finished singing in pediatrics. And I will never, ever, ever forget that time. That's what I was, like if I was to have died that moment, like, that night or in my sleep. Yeah, in my sleep, not falling off my bicycle and going down a manhole. I at that moment, I thought I probably felt that my job was done. I truly can't. I couldn't believe that this happened. I mean, so it was very cool. It truly was. It was a hell of a deal. Hell of a deal. And I'm so tremendously proud that I was able to be a part of that. And if anybody from the Knox Baptist Church ever hears this story, I want you to know your choir that night was like God's angels, because they had it. This was not fun. This was a horrible thing, and magic, absolute magic. All right, so there's another story. We'll see what other things I can dredge up